Hey, book lovers! I'm Katie Dodrell. Today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated books for May and June. There are a lot of books coming out over the next couple of months that I'm really excited about. Some of them are thrillers, some are cozy mysteries, and there's even a romantic comedy thrown in. So let's get started. I'll be listing these books in their order of publication, starting with books coming out in May. The first book I'll talk about is Summers at the Saint by Mary Kay Andrews, with a publication date of May 7th. Mary Kay Andrews is known for her Southern books and especially for writing beach reads. A lot of her books are set in Savannah or Tybee Island or in other parts of Georgia. And so that's really cool to me because, of course, I live in Georgia. I love Savannah and Tybee Island. She sets some books in other states and other locations, but pretty much always in the South. The settings are always a huge part of Mary Kay Andrews' books, almost a character in their own right. And they're just always very evocatively described. So, this book, Summers at the Saint, is set at the St. Cecilia Hotel in coastal Georgia. The synopsis says something like, if you grew up coming to the St. Cecilia, you were a saint. But if you grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and didn't come to the St. Cecilia, you were an ain't. So the main character, Tracy, is an ain't. She's not one of the rich, connected people who got to stay at the St. Cecilia. But when she was in high school, she worked there and she ended up marrying the boss's son. As this book starts, Tracy is widowed and owns the hotel, but it's not doing well financially, and she has some family members who are making things hard for her. She has one summer season to try to turn things around. Apparently, there's some kind of mystery involving a drowning, too, that she has to solve. And like all Mary Kay Andrews books, she just might find a romance. I can't wait to read this book. I know that the coastal Georgia setting will be beautifully described. I'm also looking forward to reading about this rundown hotel that Tracy is trying to save. The supporting characters in Mary Kay Andrews books are always really good. They're usually quirky and funny. So I'm really looking forward to starting off the month of May by reading this book. The next book I'll talk about is The Last Time She Saw Him by Kate White, with a publication date of May 14th. I love Kate White. I've talked about her before here. I'll probably talk about her again. She has 18 books now. She writes mystery, thriller, suspense novels. Some of her novels are in her Bailey Wiggins series, and some are standalone books. This one is a standalone book. The Last Time She Saw Him is about a woman whose ex fiance seemingly dies by suicide, but she suspects that he was actually murdered. The synopsis says that the main character, Kiki, is at a party in the Connecticut countryside, and she runs into her ex fiance, Jamie, at the party. She thinks that it might be awkward, but it's actually not. They have a pretty pleasant conversation and then go their separate ways. But later that night, they hear a gunshot and they find Jamie dead in his car. Kiki is convinced that he didn't commit suicide, but no one will believe her. So she starts investigating on her own and finds some scary things, some things that don't quite add up. So it sounds like it's going to be a good mystery about her investigating this death. I always love Kate White heroines. They're just very gutsy and independent. They kind of inspire me to be more brave in my own life. Not that I want to investigate murders, but just the way that these characters are so smart and capable and just able to withstand the tough events that they go through, that just makes me want to be more independent myself. So I always love these heroines that Kate White writes about. I also always like Kate White's settings. I know that the country house where this party takes place will be beautifully described and full of atmosphere. So I'm really excited to read The Last Time She Saw Him when it comes out on May 14th. The next book I'll talk about is One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware with a publication date of May 21st. I love Ruth Ware. If you watched my top 10 books from 2023 video, I think 0 Days, Ruth Ware's book from last year, was number 2 on that list. And honestly, it could have been number 1. It was just such a good book. It followed a woman whose husband had been murdered. She was suspected of committing the murder. So she was running from the police while also trying to find her husband's real killer. It was just a very suspenseful, good book. I'm really excited about One Perfect Couple. It's set on an isolated tropical island with a killer stalking the people there. The synopsis compares it to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is actually my least favorite Agatha Christie book, but I do love Agatha Christie, so hopefully I'll enjoy this book too. So, in One Perfect Couple, the main character, Lila, goes on a reality show with her boyfriend, Nico. The show is called One Perfect Couple, and it features 5 couples on this island who are competing for a cash prize. Of course, on the island, things start to go wrong. There's a huge storm. The couples on the island don't have a way to communicate with the TV crew who brought them there. Water starts running low, and apparently there's a murderer there too. So it sounds like an awesome book. I always love the books that are set on isolated tropical islands. That's just always fun. I'm really excited to read this book. The next book I'll talk about is Camino Ghost by John Grisham with a publication date of May 28th. I'm actually not a huge fan of John Grisham. I read A Time to Kill and The Firm many years ago, and I liked them, but not enough to continue reading his books. But he has this series, the Camino Island series, that I think has a different feel from most of his books. It's almost like a cozy mystery series. So I started reading the books in the Camino Island series a few years ago. And this book, Camino Ghost, is the 3rd book in that series. The series is about a resort town on Camino Island in Florida. It follows a bookstore owner and a novelist who work together to solve various crimes or sometimes work against each other. Their relationship is complicated and it's a fun part of the series. According to the synopsis, Camino Ghost is about a deserted island between Florida and Georgia, deserted except for one inhabitant who is trying to prevent a big developer from turning the island into a resort. There are apparently ghost stories about the island. It may be cursed, and the main characters are involved in some kind of plot involving the island's history. There's really not a lot of information in the synopsis, but I liked the first 2 books in the series, so I'm definitely going to be reading this one. The secondary characters who live on Camino Island are really quirky and fun to read about. Obviously, I like the plot device of the isolated island, so I'm definitely going to be picking this book up when it comes out. So, those are the books that I'm most excited about for the month of May. It's so cool that for the 7th through the 28th, I have a new book that I'm excited to read coming out every single week. They're spaced out perfectly. The books for the month of June are not spaced out so perfectly. There are several of them that come out on the same day, but that's okay. Let's talk about books coming out in June that I'm excited about. So, the first book that I'll talk about for the month of June is Middle of the Night by Riley Sagar with a publication date of June 18th. I don't always love Riley Sagar books. They are a little too violent and gory. Sometimes they kind of veer into horror territory, which I don't like. I've even DNF'd some of his books. But there have also been a couple of Riley Sagar books that I just couldn't put down. Those were Lock Every Door and The House Across the Lake. Those were just really suspenseful books, lots of twist, and I just read those books really fast and couldn't put them down. I didn't really like the ending of either of them, but I still remember them years later. That's the thing about Riley Sagar books. Whether you like them or not, they stick with you. This new book, Middle of the Night, is about a man named Ethan Marsh. When he was 10 years old, he and his best friend Billy were camping in Ethan's backyard, and in the middle of the night, Billy disappeared. He was never seen again. So 30 years later, Ethan returns to his hometown. He starts seeing signs that Billy might actually still be alive. Of course, he doesn't know if it's a cruel prank or a ghost or some other unexplained event. He starts investigating and he finds that there are a lot of secrets in his seemingly quiet suburban neighborhood. If this is anything like Sagar's other books, it will be really suspenseful, compulsively readable, and it will have a twist at the end that just blows my mind. As I said, I haven't liked all of his books, but the good ones are fast, addictive reads, and I just can't stay away from them. So I'll let you know what I think of this one. The next book I'll talk about is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley with a publication date of June 18th. I've read 3 books by Lucy Foley: The Guest List, The Hunting Party, and The Paris Apartment. I haven't loved those books, but they are extremely suspenseful and kept me interested while I was reading them. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading The Midnight Feast. The Midnight Feast is about an expensive, elegant resort called the Manor. The book is set during opening weekend at the Manor, and everything seems really opulent and beautiful, but there are some problems, including the fact that the locals don't really like the Manor, and there's some kind of threatening pagan force. The synopsis doesn't say where the manor is located. I would imagine some isolated place. Could it be another deserted island book? I hope so. It's described as a locked room mystery. Most Lucy Foley books have chapters from multiple different perspectives, so that's what I expect from this book. I'm hoping for another exciting, addictive read. I'll let you know what I think. The next book I'll talk about is The Perils of Lady Katherine de Bourgh by Claudia Gray with a publication date of June 18th. This book is the 3rd book in the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney series. If you're a Jane Austen fan, you recognize the name Darcy from Pride and Prejudice and the name Tilney from Northanger Abbey. The Mr. Darcy in this book is Jonathan Darcy, son of Elizabeth and George Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. The Miss Tilney is Juliet Tilney, daughter of Katherine and Henry Tilney from Northanger Abbey. In this series, Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney work together to solve murders. All of the books feature some of our old favorite characters from Jane Austen, including the Knightleys from Emma, Mary Ann and Colonel Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. In this book, Jonathan's rich, snobby great-aunt, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, summons him and Juliet to Rosings Park because she suspects that someone is trying to kill her, and she wants Jonathan and Juliet to investigate and prevent this from happening. Of course, there is a romance between Jonathan and Juliet. It's a very slow burn romance, so I'll be interested to see how it moves forward in this book. Another interesting thing about this series is that Jonathan is on what we would consider today as the autism spectrum. Of course, autism wasn't known about in Regency England, so it's interesting to read about how Jonathan navigates life, how his parents help him to learn to be independent, and how other people treat him. To me, it seems like a very sensitive portrayal of somebody on the autism spectrum. There are a lot of continuations of Jane Austen books. Some I like, some I don't. This series is one that I like, so I'm really excited to pick up this new book. The next book I'll talk about is Pitch Dark by Paul Doirun, with a publication date of June 25th. This is the 15th book in the Mike Bowditch series. Mike Bowditch is a game warden in Maine. In Maine, game wardens are basically policemen, but they just deal more with crimes that involve nature or wildlife in some way. When the series starts, Mike is a brand new game warden. As it continues, he ends up becoming a warden investigator, which means that he investigates crimes. The books have great description of nature and animals, great settings in the Maine wilderness, including forests, lakes, and islands. In this book, Pitch Dark, Mike Bowditch is investigating a man who lives deep in the Maine wilderness with his daughter. Mike ends up witnessing a crime, being taken hostage, and he has to make his way through the forest to Canada to escape. I actually jumped into this series a couple of years ago with the 13th book, and then I went back and read the other books in the series. I enjoyed all the books. You could probably jump into the series with this book if you wanted to. I'm really excited about reading it. So there you have it. These are the books that I'm most excited about reading over the next couple of months. I'll let you know how I like them. Please comment and let me know any books that you're excited about reading, because I always need new recommendations. If you read any of these books, please comment and tell me what you think. And of course, if you like this video and want to get more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe. Now, go lay out by the pool while I read.